Welcome back. You're watching Newsnight, and the issue in focus this evening, COVID vaccine road ahead. That's the issue that we'll be focusing on this evening. And two very special guests are joining me in the program. Professor K. Vijay Raghavan, Principal Scientific Advisor, Government of India. Also Dr. Raman Gangakhedkar, Dr. C.G. Pandit, National Chair, ICMR. Welcome to both of you. Professor Raghavan, if I can begin with you, the world is desperate for a vaccine, we know, but we also know that often in desperation one can make mistakes. The Russian vaccine that has come up, what kind of caution, what kind of checks and balances must every country perform to make sure that the vaccine is effective?
Well, thank you very much. You have actually outlined the process a little earlier.
Yeah.
A vaccine is administered to otherwise healthy people, normally healthy people, and therefore, unlike some drug or vaccine developed for terminally ill or seriously ill people, the risks have to be minimal or absent. Therefore, you go through a preclinical trial where vaccines are not yet in human, but they do animal trials. Then you have a phase 1 for testing safety and dosage. Then you have expanded trials, safety trials in phase 2, where you look at immunogenicity. And then in large-scale phase 3 trials, you look at efficacy. And then vaccines are approved for use. So all these steps have to be gone through rigorously. Hastily putting a vaccine out will have not only problems in that the vaccine will cause problems, but it will also reduce public trust in the process and in other vaccines which may come. About specifically the Russian vaccines, we don't have enough data yet to know what the phase 1 and phase 2 results are. And the phase 3 trials have not yet been done. So unless we have that information, it's not possible to comment one way or another.
Right. Dr. Gangakhedkar, sir, we'd like to learn from you as well. To simply put, what kind of data would India, for instance, require to know about the safety and efficacy of the vaccine developed by Russia, Sputnik?
See, basically, there are certain things which we have to recall when we say phase 1 and 2. By and large, in phase 1, you will perhaps see a data which is related to immediate toxicity of a vaccine, which could be potentially fatal, which could be something related to the allergic kind of responses that a vaccine may generate. But that is not sufficient. So therefore, you go to phase 2. In phase 2, what you actually see is a short-term toxicity data, because the duration by and large is little longer, and then you are able to see what other side effects are you likely to see. But in phase 3, you will characteristically see that you have a long-term data wherein you can actually say what kind of toxicity one could expect. And in phase 4, which we call as post-marketing surveillance, you look for the rarer long-term toxicity events or rare events that could occur, which need to be captured in post-marketing surveillance at that time. When it comes to the phases, if I do only phase 1 and phase 2, I cannot be very certain what would be the protection that a vaccine will provide to an individual who takes it. Now, which is also called as efficacy. The reason why I'm saying this is in phase 1, you essentially look at whether this vaccine is able to generate antibodies against it, which could be neutralizing antibodies. Second thing which we have to remember, even in phase 2, you also have these antibodies which are assessed, but there is a small element of looking at efficacy which may not be accurate, mainly because you are looking for a short period of time and small number of individuals, and therefore you can't ever be certain whether what would be the exact efficacy over a long period in a larger sample. And that's essentially what is done in phase 3. And therefore, we need to distinguish whether the vaccine that is being currently talked about is only immunogenic, and we are thinking that this vaccine would work. But ideally, you would like the data that whether if I give this vaccine to 100 people, how many of them will not acquire COVID-19 given that they are staying in an area where the outbreak is particularly significant.
Right. Professor Raghavan, given the kind of intensive screening that must be required to sort of take any vaccine developed in a foreign country, how significant does the role of expert committee on vaccine administration, the first meeting of which took place today, becomes? Because they are the people who are going to determine the manner in which procurement of a safe and effective vaccine will take place.
Well, their role is very, very important. And it stands on a very strong foundation of vaccine evaluation and administration in the country. The Health Ministry has a National Technical Advisory Group on Immunization, co-chaired by the Director General of the Indian Council for Medical Research and the Secretary of the Department of Biotechnology, with the Health Secretary as the chair. This committee looks at vaccines in every respect, all the points we mentioned about the trials, the data, the effectiveness in populations, costs, how to procure, and then the Health Ministry goes on and procures this. The Health Ministry then has an electronic vaccine intelligence network and cold chains for distribution, and so that they can track where to distribute the vaccine, how much, and whether it's been distributed or administered. This is now needs to be scaled up enormously because this is not a routine immunization program, and this committee, which you mentioned, will be doing that, and I'm sure that we'll be right on the ball as far as scaling and administering this vaccine comes.
Right. Professor Raghavan, you mentioned issues of distribution. These are, of course, issues that will be the focus once a effective vaccine is in place. But from the perspective of distribution, do we have any insight if there is going to be a certain priority list? Who are the people who would be administered doses first? Is there a set strategy already? Will senior citizens who are sick be given medicine first? How does it work once the vaccine is in place?
That's exactly what the Health Ministry and this committee will look into. This is, again, very unusual in terms of a vaccine because most other vaccines, you start by choosing specific states or regions in the country and then starting a phased administration, which takes several years. This is not going to be like that. You're going to have to administer all over affected areas for certain specified sets of people, and then again over another set of people, and so on. So this is complex. Health Ministry will decide what the prioritization is, but I'm sure that one can have a effective administering of vaccines despite these challenges.
Right. Dr. Ganga Khedkar, if we reflect on the development taking place in India as far as vaccine development is concerned, we shared some of the prominent vaccine candidates, in fact, are in an advanced stage of development, matching other countries. Phase 1-2 trials are on. Some have also been approved for phase 3 trials. How do you assess the overall situation as far as India is concerned, indigenous vaccine development?
I think we are doing well, despite the fact that this disease has come very recently. Now, for us, we are competing for an innovative product, an original product. I think we have done exceedingly well. If you look at Bharat Biotech's vaccine, that already has come to a phase 1 level, where perhaps we will be able to assess the results and take the decision with respect to proceeding to phase 2 and phase 3 subsequently. When it comes to the vaccine of Cadila is also saying that their phase 1 is almost getting over. So the result is, the way we are moving, if any of these vaccine candidates, which we are currently talking about of the 3, turns out to be an effective kind of a vaccine which has a high efficacy, we will be in a position to offer this particular vaccine maybe sometime in the first quarter of 2021, given the fact that we will have to manufacture this particular vaccine. And these issues become very critical. As the time passes by, we will perhaps be in a position to talk a little more clearly as to how our vaccine development program is going to be effective.
Right. Professor Raghavan, finally, whether the vaccine is developed in India or abroad, India's manufacturing capability in pharmacy has been the focus from the beginning. Important point also came out in the meeting of the expert committee on vaccine administration that whenever India is able to manufacture vaccine in a mass order, it will cater to orders not just in India, but also a lot of developing countries around it, the friendly developing countries. That's an important vision statement by India.
Absolutely, that's an important statement. We must keep in mind that India already contributes to vaccines through Gavi, a global organization, to immunize children all over the world. 2 out of 3 vaccines a child gets are made in India. And so India has really demonstrated capabilities in manufacturing and vaccination all over the world. So no matter whether a vaccine is developed in India or abroad, Indian manufacturing, fill and finish, and distribution will play a very important role both for India and for the world.
Right there. On that note, Professor Raghavan, Dr. Ganga Khetkar, thank you very much for joining us in this program and sharing those insights on the future of vaccine development. Thanks very much.